Tonight a broken bar. You're not just listening to the news, you're stepping into a moment that could change the world. This is Nightmare Tales. And what you're about to hear feels less like politics and more like the beginning of something far darker. It started with an announcement, a calm voice, a formal setting, a president standing beneath bright lights. But the words, they weren't calm, they weren't ordinary. Major combat operations. Ongoing casualties may happen. Bombs will be dropping. And just like that, the world shifted. For weeks, tension had been building like pressure inside a sealed chamber. Diplomacy, threats, military buildup, warships moving silently through dark waters, fighter jets repositioned in the night. 35,000 troops spread across a region already soaked in history, blood, and unfinished wars. And then, the strikes began. Cruise missiles cutting through daylight skies. Explosions reported in multiple cities. Targets described as nuclear sites, missile facilities, naval bases, leadership compounds. But here's where this stops sounding like a news update and starts feeling like a nightmare. Because this wasn't described as a limited strike. It wasn't one and done. It was described as something larger, something ongoing, something that could last days, maybe weeks, maybe longer. When leaders begin using words like obliterate, annihilate, and regime change, history tells us one thing. This is not a warning shot. This is escalation. And escalation has consequences. Now imagine this. It's nighttime in Tehran. Sirens begin to wail. Phones buzz with emergency alerts. People rush to shelters. Windows tremble. And somewhere in the darkness, the sky flashes. At the same time, in Israel, streets empty under a declared state of emergency. Families gather inside reinforced rooms. Children ask questions no parent wants to answer. How long will this last? Nobody knows. Because this is no longer just about nuclear programs, or missile sites, or negotiations that failed behind closed doors. When a president publicly tells the people of another nation to take over your government, a broken bar, that's no longer a surgical strike. That's a message. And messages like that echo. History shows us something chilling. When powerful nations promise quick outcomes, wars rarely stay quick. When leaders say, this will secure the future, it usually means the present is about to become unstable. And then there's the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow strip of water most people have never seen, but nearly 20% of the world's oil flows through it every single day. If that closes, global markets tremble, fuel prices spike, economies shake, and fear spreads faster than missiles ever could. But here's the part that feels like a scene straight out of a Nightmare Tales episode. The daylight strikes, not under cover of darkness, not hidden, visible, public, jointly declared. This wasn't quiet coordination, it was open war language. And when words like casualties may happen are spoken before the operation even unfolds, a broken bar, that's when reality sinks in. War is not clean. War is not controlled. War rarely follows the script leaders write for it. Now step back for a moment. Think of the soldiers deployed far from home, families refreshing news feeds, parents staring at silent phones, partners wondering if the next call changes everything. Because whenever war begins, it isn't just governments involved, it's people, ordinary people. And then there's the most unpredictable variable of all, a broken bar. Retaliation. When missile sites are targeted, what happens next? When naval forces are threatened, how do they respond? When leadership compounds are hit, does it destabilize a regime or harden it? Because history also teaches us something darker. Pressure doesn't always break systems. Sometimes it radicalizes them, and then conflict becomes personal. The speech didn't sound like diplomacy. It sounded like a line had been crossed. A moment of no return. A moment that historians may one day replay frame by frame. The phrase, "we are not taking this anymore," that's not policy language. That's emotional language. And emotional language in geopolitics, that's when unpredictability enters the room. Now imagine you're watching from home, thousands of miles away. But suddenly you're aware that global supply chains, oil routes, cyber warfare, regional alliances, All of it is now fragile. One miscalculation, one mistaken strike, one retaliation too far, and conflicts widen. Because wars rarely stay contained. And this is where the real nightmare begins. Not in the explosions, not in the headlines, but in uncertainty. How long does this last? What is the true objective? Is it deterrence? Is it destruction? Is it regime change? Or is it something history hasn't fully revealed yet? When leaders speak of obliteration and annihilation, it feels definitive. But real life isn't definitive. It's layered, complex, unpredictable. And once missiles are launched, they can't be called back. Tonight on Nightmare Tales, we aren't just witnessing an operation. We're witnessing the opening chapter of something that could reshape alliances, redraw power balances, and test the limits of modern warfare. Because this isn't the 1990s. This isn't the early 2000s. This is an era of drones, cyber attacks, proxy forces, and information warfare. Battles aren't only fought in the sky, they're fought in networks, in economies, in public perception, and in the hearts of civilians caught in between. The chilling part? Everyone involved believes they're preventing something worse. That's the paradox of war. Both sides often claim they're stopping catastrophe, yet history shows war itself becomes the catastrophe. And so here we are. Sirens in one country, state of emergency in another, troops repositioned, carriers at sea, missiles mid-flight, leaders speaking of destiny, and ordinary people waiting in silence. Because in moments like this, the world holds its breath, not knowing whether this becomes a short chapter, or the beginning of a long, dark saga. This is not fiction. It's unfolding in real time. And sometimes, reality writes the most terrifying stories of all. You're listening to Nightmare Tales. And tonight, the nightmare isn't a ghost in the shadows. It's the uncertainty of what comes next. Stay alert. Stay aware. Because when global powers move like this, the aftershocks are never small. And this story, it's only just beginning.